Mr. Young?
Personnel.
Same old, okay.
Yeah.
Are we live? Are we live during that part?
Yes, we are.
He's such a Brad.
I tried to do this for you guys. I can get it today.
Yeah.
They should be.
If you guys see it really fast,
Yeah.
basically the minute you see it, I try to get it in.
That's kind of like a general.
6 months though, but.
It says Raphael over there, so. Actually,
Oh, then the agenda might be
when you come back,
because I'm sure it's that.
yeah,
That's the biggie.
the thing is, you don't see it, the other one, it's trying to log you in with a picture, that's the photo badge option, but these will work on this anyway, because.
They don't, because we're not fancy enough, Michael.
Because you don't have a camera. We can install a camera, give you a camera. You have to think of that.
What?
I'm gonna install cameras, give them all photo badges like we do the kindergartners.
Oh, yeah.
It probably will, because those are clever. They're not. I know
Yeah,
they're
that's
clever.
clever, yeah.
But I was gonna say, what are we?
They do, I mean, it always comes up for clever, but,
And that's because it has to for that to work.
yeah.
For that option to work, it has to be first. I don't like that, but that's just the way that system works. That has to be the primary option.
Okay, all seven board members are present. We have two student reps, Raquel Arison and Caitlin Gana. Okay. Would you join me for the Mrs. Alexander? Oh, well, it won't be last now. Okay. During closed session, placement of non-public schools, Mr. Novel motion, Mrs. McFarland second, and the board approved the placement of non-public school student changes numbers 28 by the following vote of 7 yes, 0 no. We had a conference with on some anticipated litigation. Dr. Ball motion, Mrs. McFarland second, and the board rejected by a vote of 7-0. And another conference, by the way, that claim was 643-426. The second claim that had anticipated litigation, Mr. Porter motion and Mrs. McFarland second, and the board rejected claim 643-243 by a vote of 7 yes and 0 no's. Okay, and that takes care of that. Okay, we're moving on. Student reps, have any comments? Anything you want to share, Raquel?
It's actually our homecoming week this week, so we've been really busy with planning and setting up for our spirit days. Everyone's spiritful lately. Yesterday wasn't so spiritful because of recent community threats, but we still were able to have some spirit because everyone's still dressed up at home. And today, everyone was nearly dressed up for our spirit day, so that's going really well. And I've been really busy with school lately, and I'm trying to keep my grades up and all that. So yeah, thank you.
All right, that's a good idea. Caitlin, you're up.
So, Mr. Connexon, just, yeah, is this the time you're setting aside for them to do the reports? Because it's
that's what's on my
usually,
list. It's a
Okay.
report on this is what I'm.
okay, so he may actually have a more formal report that he's providing. It's normally after my comments, so I think they were waiting for my comments. But if you want to go through your,
Would you like to continue?
Yes, thank you, President Connexon and members of the board and Mr. Young. First, I'm proud to report that our blood drive held on September 6th was a tremendous success. We had an impressive turnout, collecting 111 pints of blood. This generous contribution is estimated to save 333 lives. A heartfelt thank you to everyone who participated and supported this important cause. The collective efforts of our students and staff truly make a life-saving difference. We also held our very first Club Penny Wars from September 3rd to the 6th during both of our lunches. We had an incredible turnout with 12 clubs participating, and we successfully raised a total of $600. Thank you so much to the clubs that contributed and make this fundraiser a huge success. We're also currently in the midst of our Homecoming Spirit Week, like I said, which started yesterday, September 16th. This theme for this week is Eras of Hollywood, and today's spirit theme was iconic movie character. I dressed up as Charlie Brown, and my advisor dressed up as Papa Smurf. Yesterday, Monday, was Hide from the Paparazzi. Tomorrow, Wednesday, will be Genre Day, and I'm planning to dress up as Chucky because my favorite genre is horror. And it's followed by Celebrity Crush Day on Thursday and Art Class Colors on Friday. Additionally, we also painted our theater windows last Friday to create even more spirit for our homecoming week. And our homecoming rally will take place this Friday, September 20th, followed by our homecoming dance after the football game against Franklin High School. During halftime, we will host our float parade, followed by the crowning of our homecoming royalty. And finally, our choir, band, and orchestra will come together for their combined fall concert tomorrow, September 18th at 6:30 p.m. in the Mamie Star Theater. Now for some staff and student recognitions, I would like to recognize Ms. Karen Gonzalez and her CTE classes for their hard work and dedication in organizing our blood drives and bringing in the community to donate their blood. And a shout out to our student body for working hard and keeping the spirit alive through their involvement. And a big thank you to Mr. Young for sparing some time to visit our student government last Thursday. We appreciate him for spending some time with us and providing some snacks for the entire class. And a personal recognition to my advisor, Mr. Jason Berg, for his unwavering support to me as my advisor and to our student government classes. He's been a beacon of support for all of us. And on behalf of my ASB board and our student government, we are grateful to you, Mr. Berg, if you're watching, and for everything that you've been doing for us throughout the first quarter. Thank you, Mr. Berg, for your dedication to us. And finally, on to our sports. Football will play against Franklin on September 20th, with JV playing at 5 p.m. and varsity at 7 p.m. Flag football will face Edison tomorrow, September 18th. JV plays at 5 and varsity at 6. Girls volleyball will also play against Edison. Freshman plays at 4:30, JV plays at 5:30, and varsity plays at 6:30. And our girls varsity water polo will play against Stag tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. And our girls varsity tennis will also play against Tokay at 4 p.m. tomorrow. And our girls varsity golf will compete at Mickey Grove on Thursday, September 19th at 3:30 p.m. And before I end this report, I would also like to express our sincere gratitude to the Stockton and Lodi police departments and the district for their ongoing efforts in keeping us and safe from recent shooting threats in the community. And that's all I have to report from McNair. Thank you very much.
Is there any chance that you got a photograph of Papa Smurf?
Right. Yeah,
We need to have that put up.
yeah, all right, I'll give it later.
Okay. Caitlin, what's going on Lodi?
President Knack said members of the board and Superintendent Young. Lodi High has had a great kickoff to our football season these past few weeks. It started with our victory against Tokay. We also had our homecoming game on September 6th, and we won against McNair 20-16. Our theme for that game was white out, and everyone was to wear white. Our homecoming king was Fernando Collin, and our homecoming queen was Karis Mann. We also had a spirit week that week as well. A homecoming carnival on that Thursday after school, which consisted of snacks, drinks, and games. It was an opportunity for clubs to kick off the year for fundraisers. Linker has also organized a scavenger hunt for freshmen. Last week we had Sparky auditions after school. We had several students come out and we chose our new mascot. Lastly, we will be hosting our financial aid night on September 19th at 6:30. I hope we will have more amazing events to come. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Young, you have a report?
Yeah, Mr. Knack said, members of the board, I want to begin by acknowledging that across the country, schools and districts have been dealing with a viral threat against schools circulating on social media. Sadly, this has included our district and schools, as well as schools within our county. This has resulted in students' arrests across Northern California. I know as a parent that these threats are scary, and that our students and staff feel the weight of what is transpiring across the nation and here locally. I want to assure our community that we are very much aware and are staying vigilant. Each safety concern that comes to us is investigated working with local law enforcement. We want to remind families to share with their children the ramifications, both academically and legally, of making online threats against any school or any of our students. We also ask that they report and send safety concerns to the appropriate school administration or law enforcement, and to not repost the threats, which has created additional challenges throughout our district, county, state, and country. Again, I know the past few weeks have been stressful for our families, students, and staff. Please know that we take each safety concern seriously. And I know this because, like many of us sitting up here and out in the audience, we've been up at 10, 11, 1, 3, 4 in the morning dealing with these threats. So please know that we take each safety concerns seriously, and we will continue to work with our community and law enforcement, and our law enforcement has been wonderful to keep our schools safe. Now, with all those challenges we have faced and the way we feel, I do want to say that I've had a great opportunity to visit Wagner Holt, Creekside, Julia Morgan, and Manlio Silva elementary schools since our last board meeting. While visiting, I not only enjoyed being in classrooms, and I really did enjoy being in classrooms, but I had a chance to enjoy a grandparents' day, sharing in and out gift cards with students who are top reading winners, enjoying the start of the day assembly and reading with kindergartners. I also had a chance to go to Mrs. Wilson's first grade class of BRA, as well as to visit the McNair High School student government class with an exceptional group of students. It was really fun to watch your class. That was amazing. Working together in preparation for homecoming week, Papa Smurf. So that is good. And finally, we are closing in on the end of the first quarter. Big sigh for all of our staff. Next week, our elementary schools will have parent-teacher conferences, and we will begin the countdown to the October break. And I know many of our dedicated staff members are looking forward to some much-needed time away, as well as our students. I hand it back to you, Mr. Knaxton.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we're at point of employee group representatives comment time. So if you have anybody would like to come up. For each employee group, representative shall limit their comments to 5 minutes, please. And we need your name.
Good morning, good evening, oh my goodness. President Knaxton, members of the board, Mr. Young, members of the cabinet, our student representative. What do you say about a technology that, when it was envisioned, was supposed to bring people together and then see it tear communities apart? And the threats on social media have been scary, disheartening, disappointing. I want to give kudos to the staff at schools and the administrators for dealing with it and keeping everyone safe and calm. I wish we did not live in this kind of a world. To that end, I'm happy to see that we're bringing a couple of things on the agenda that I'll talk to later about. We'll talk about it here, about the cell phone policy and also some of our changes in board policies. Hopefully that will help keep everyone safe. To that end, though, there are still some safety issues that my teachers are telling me regarding parents and students attacking teachers. And I think that is something that we need to be more vigilant about, be more strict about. I hear some frustration that some administrators are not taking it as seriously as they should. And part of it is they feel, as teachers, feel that the children are not in the correct placement, that they're in general ed and they shouldn't be in general ed. Or even if they're in special ed, they're not in the right special ed class. And we're going to have people who are leaving because, you know, I had a teacher I talked to, general ed, and first year, and asked me, what happens if I quit? What are the ramifications? I don't know if I can do this. I'm not getting support from my admin. What do we, what do we do? Seriously, we need to listen to people. These are the people who are actually dealing with the students. And we are gonna lose people. And it's sad. It's just heartbreaking to me. We also need to realize that even though we don't have, how do I want to say this? So it's not explicit in our collective bargaining agreement that we have anything that says, you know, a student can't hit you. That's in board policy though, it's in civil policy, it's in ed code. Just because it's not in our contract doesn't mean that it gets ignored. To that other end, there are parts of our contract that are being ignored that I'm trying to bring up. And for example, I am sure the board is aware that we filed a PERB charge regarding our payment for our CTE teachers and language that was negotiated at the table in good faith, and the district's choosing not to follow it. So we got to take that seriously too. We spend hours trying to get a contract that makes both sides happy. And then to see the district just say, yeah, no, we're not going to follow it. Again, disrespect to our teachers. That's what I'm hearing. The way the teachers are being treated by parents, students, administrators, and even the district, with giving bigger raises to the people at the top and throwing out crumbs to those of us who are actually in the trenches with the kids. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Hi, come on up.
President Knackstead, members of the board, Mr. Young, my name is Lisa Cranford, and I am the representative for LESTA, and I'm Director 3 Technology Services, and just wanted to introduce myself to you.
Good evening, President Knackstead, members of the board, Mr. Young, Matt Harris, Principal Elkhorn School. We just wanted to make sure that we got a chance to see you all and let you know that LESTA is back in action. We want to be here to support our colleagues as well as our students and our staff.
Good evening, President Knackstead, members of the board, and Superintendent Young. My name is Christine Alberg. I am the principal at Lawrence Elementary and also a representative of LESTA, and I'm looking forward to building a relationship with you guys and working together.
Good evening, President Knackstead, members of the board, Mr. Young, student representatives. My name is Joe Ward. I'm the principal at Westwood Elementary School, also a member representing LESTA, and we're just thankful to be here, and again, just to let you know that we're here and back in action, trying to be supportive.
All right. Thank you for dropping by and introducing yourself.
Mr. Knackstead, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
At the microphone tonight, we had a comment made about attacking teachers. Can you look into that and clarify if that was a verbal attack? When we're going to use the word attacking, I want to make sure that our staff is safe and that our students are also safe. So if someone's being attacked, I don't know if the reference was verbal or physical. I'm sure there would be instant reports or that would be tracked. Can you get that back to the board?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any employee groups tonight? Okay. We will move on to comments from the public then. At this point, a 20-minute time period has been set aside for the public to address the board on items that are not listed on the agenda. Each public speaker shall limit their comments to 3 minutes, and the board can engage in dialogue about public comments because there's restrictions placed by the California Brown Act. Make sure you give us your first and last name. So is there anybody from the public who would like to make a comment? No? Oh, okay. We should. How about Susan Hawk? Okay.
Hello, my name is Susan Hoke. In the midst of everything, I'm here just to represent the library media assistants. You know, a lot's going on, so we would like to just remind you we are still working out of our job classification, and that we have not had any formal meetings to talk about reclassification. Thank you.
Okay, that it? All right, moving on to consent agenda A. At this point, the public may address the board on consent agenda A, which is the routine business. Each public speaker will limit their comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody who would like to speak to consent agenda A items? Sure, give us your first and last name.
Mr. Knackstead, members of the board. Consent agenda A, item A3.
Can you state your name?
Oh,
just so
sorry.
people can- Thank you.
Lisa Levin-Wilkins from Lodi Education Association. On page 2 of the attachment, under certificated salaries 1XXX, it says that there is an available balance of $21,956,518.74. Is that from the unfilled positions that we were not able to fill for certificated staff?
You said page 2?
It's page 2, the summary by object.
Okay, we're not gonna really get into that until we get to that point. But that's something you want brought up, correct?
So, Mr. Knaxton, members of the board, if you want staff to respond to the specific questions, you can, but the board needs to direct staff to do so.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and do this then. Okay, go ahead and respond then.
I'm sorry, Ms. Wilkins, top, page 2, right?
Page 2, where it says changes to the adopted budget revision 03, it's got the green header. The first one under 1, code 1 XXX certificated salaries. If you go all the way to the right, the available balance of over 21 million. Is that from unfilled positions?
That's correct. That's unfilled positions.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other items that would like to be commented on? Okay, would the board staff like to pull any items from agenda A?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve consent agenda A.
Okay. I'll second that. Okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Student vote on this.
Yay.
Yay.
Board vote, please. Are we electronic? Yes. Okay. You can go. And consent agenda A passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to consent B, the public may address the board on consent agenda B, which is student matters. Each public shall limit their comments to 3 minutes. Make sure you refer just to the student number, not by name. Okay? At that point then, we need a
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, I move we approve consent agenda B.
So now a motion, this is McFarland seconded, and students, you do not vote on this one, but, so board vote. There we go. And that passes 7-0. Okay, the fun ones. Coming up to reports. Lego education in the classroom. Dr. Horton, what's up, bud?
Board President Knaxton, members of the board, happy to introduce Liz Wright, one of our professional development coaches. And from a previous board meeting, it was mentioned that the board was looking to see a report on the use of Lego in our schools. And in doing that, we excitedly reached out to some of the people that do this all the time, and Liz was gracious enough to lead the charge to share with us some of the exciting things happening in our schools with Lego. And she even has, as you can see, a little hands-on activity that is about to unfold. This is the highlight. All right. As we settle in, Liz will soon regale us with the stories of Lego all across the district.
As I was driving here, I thought, I'm not used to presenting, teaching from sitting. Like, wow, let's get used to it. So, thank you for having me, President Knaxton, Superintendent Young, members of the board. Thank you, Dr. Horton, for setting this up, and thank you, Mrs. Alexander, for asking more about Lego education. So, hopefully everyone has gotten a bag. So, go ahead and open up this bag. Michael, you can go to the next one, please. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. You have 6 Lego bricks, and you are going to build a deck. This is an activity that our teachers got an opportunity to do. So starting now. Go. Don't look at others. Build the duck.
That's too low.
Are you sure that duck's gonna swim? Oh, you're so
As you are finishing, go ahead and share with those around you. I already see. But don't change yours. Yours is perfect. Just
There's my duck.
I was making the building. I made a dinosaur, right? Now it's a duck. There was a dinosaur.
so you guys can probably find a duck that is similar to yours on the screen in front of you. Maybe you won't, because there are thousands and thousands of different ways with just six little bricks to build a duck. Next, please. So if you take a minute and look at the screen, you'll see all of the different activities. They're functioning skills that your brain engaged in with these 6 simple bricks. The highlighted blue ones are a little bit more obvious, but underneath each of those, you'll see all of the different skills in just those 60 seconds that you engaged in. So that's why we have Lego education at many of our sites. Next. Oh, they're not doing the super duck now. Sorry, I know, there's a super duck. I'll tell you guys about that later. All right, so where do we have our Legos? We have Legos at 11 of our elementary sites spread between Area 1 and 2. The 3 at the bottom, Reese, Oakwood, and John Muir, are in the process of preparing theirs. And they were actually, we started that before the end of the school year last year. So it's really exciting to see our elementary sites grow. 3 of our middle school sites have them, as well as Krista McCullough. We've been in discussion getting them there. And then we also have them in our other programs. Avid Secondary has them so that our Avid students have exposure to STEM practices as well as careers. And then they can get to explore different engineering challenges and whatnot within their Avid course. And then we also have out at Turner Academy, Bridge. In the summer STEAM camp, we had them in both Area 1 and 2. We had summer STEAM camp, and I think that's where some of you may have first heard about our Lego education. And they were used to explore the engineering and coding side of STEAM as opposed to some of the less technological side, like some art and building in other ways. We also have some in the IMC. We have a class set of both the primary and the more intermediate. And what we do with those is the teachers can check them out, of course, but I mainly go out into the school sites. I do some co-teaching lessons. I do some model lessons, but I also get to work at the staff meetings and work with the teachers so that they get excited about their education and bring them into their classroom. A lot of these were purchased through the ELO grant. Some sites have been using them or have been purchasing through the Ramus grant and some site funds as well. Okay, next. So I talked about our early education, some of our different kits we have. We have 3 different types of kits in the classroom. We have the early education kits, which just is building and coding using color blocks, so they're not actually on a device when they're coding. They're using color blocks that the train drives over, and the colors tell them it to do different things. Typically in TK up to 1st grade. We have the Lego brick cubes, which are physical science. There's no technology attached to it. It's all about the simple machines, understanding forces of motion, and that's typically for grades 1 through 8. And then we have our Lego Spike Kits, which are the most popular, and we are building and coding with the computer, and it is so much fun. So much fun. I'm going to show you on the next slide. So in the upper left-hand corner, those are third graders. They have built a pinball machine, and so there are levers on there, and when the ball goes up through the arches, it passes by a sensor that lights something up. On the lower left, that is actually a stock photo because I hadn't had an opportunity to go out and do a co-teaching lesson with our early education until this last Friday, and our pictures were already due by then, or sorry, our slides. So I got to go out to Live Oak, and I worked in a first grade classroom, and in true Lodi Great Festival fashion, we built our own amusement park with these different Duplo blocks. So they're larger, so they are using their fine motor skills, but with a more developmentally appropriate size brick. And we had a lot of fun there. But our video, and Michael, if we could bring up that video, this is also at our summer STEAM camp. This is in the middle school in Mr. Maroka's classroom. He presented the students with a challenge to build and code their own machine. So this student, what you'll see is he has coded the machine to, one, sense him when he walks by. The machine will come up and it actually has words that greets him. And then what you'll see is it deploys the ammunition. So you can see a lot of the great things that are happening in our classrooms across the district. It has been a wonderful opportunity. I truly feel like I have one of the best jobs in the district. So thank you so much for supporting our growing STEAM education in Lodi Unified.
Thank you.
And I would just like to add to that, I'm Jennifer Tillett, the coordinator of professional development. So, you know, with the COVID monies, we were able to buy a bunch of these STEAM materials. And part of that is when we were able to hire Liz as our instructional coach first. And she has since been on soft monies that will complete after the end of next year. So I just wanted to make the board aware that we will be looking for a permanent home for her through hopefully LCAP funds with Raphael, and I'm working on some of those things that are still on soft money. But I also just wanted to really brag about her because I knew she wouldn't brag about herself. She's been able to assist principals to go in and organize all of these things because there's a lot of little pieces, a lot of robots, a lot, just the Legos. And so I think she feels like she's finally at this point, now it's action in classrooms and teachers are wanting this. And so it's a lot of fun to I haven't been able to go out and see as much as I would like to see, but it's really exciting to see everything in action and see the kiddos just using their brains in different ways that, you know, our teachers have a tough job, and that job is to prepare kids for we can't even imagine. So Liz is instrumental in bringing this across the district.
So the super duck that I told you I'd come back to, if you wanted, you can combine your duck with your neighbor and create a super duck. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know we have some elementary schools here. What about the other elementary schools?
So what about the other elementary schools? I have been working with the administrators. What happened over the last 2 years when we had the ESSER grants available, I would go out to the sites and meet with the administrators or their team and see if it was something that would best fit the culture of their site, because we don't want to be purchasing things or encouraging a purchase of something that's not going to be well utilized. It's just going to sit and collect dust. So there are some sites that just weren't there yet. So for example, those 3 sites at the end, we're working on getting those in now. I continue to work together with my STEAM site leads. I have someone designated at each site that I work closely with, as well as the administrators. As the interest comes up, then I work with them to try to get the materials there. A lot of teachers got to attend a LEGO EDU session, either with myself or with some of the LEGO representatives at our back to school conference, and so that did get some more excitement around them, and I've been able to go out and do some co-teaching lessons. We do have a couple more class sets that are going into the IMC. I just got word that they got delivered yesterday, so I'll be processing those so that more can check them out on a basis like that.
What time of the day do elementary schools go through this? Is there a subject that you present and then they do this, or how do they do that?
So, for example, the last 2 days I was in a 4th grade class at Larson, and at Larson, if you know, they actually move their students through each of the different teachers, and so I taught the same lesson twice during their science block. This at Larson. I've also come in during the math block. The pinball was during a math block. But then also just during any time in the day, there's lots of different ways we can connect it back to the curriculum that we have, not only science standards or the math standards, but into the stories that they're reading or the real world things such as their experience of the Grape Festival this weekend.
Now, are these all grade levels at the elementary school, or just one particular level?
All grade levels. So the Duplo blocks are larger blocks. All of them can be used across every grade level. The Duplo blocks are larger blocks, so it's more developmentally appropriate for their fine motor skills. However, we could use those same Duplo blocks in a 6th grade classroom. So all of the students have access if they are at their sites.
Very nice, very good. Really creative.
Before we go on, let's get back on the agenda. Mr. Nava got carried away. Is there any public comment?
Carried away.
Is there any comments from the public?
I didn't get carried away.
Okay, student comments?
I just want to say thank you so much for the Legos.
Okay, and
They made a super duck. Did you make a super duck? I love it.
I just had a quick question. Well, this is amazing and I love it. I'm wondering, do you take donations from some of those parents who have Rubbermaid containers filled with Legos? I know that not all of mine have components or motorized things, but
yes, absolutely.
My children are watching your Legos. They were just random Legos I found.
Yes, actually, a lot of our sites are working to build either a maker or STEAM space. As well, whether it just be a classroom. Actually, we have 2 of our sites represented that have beautiful maker spaces. And then we also have some teachers who are just trying to get more materials in the classroom that are hands-on. So absolutely, please reach out to me. I would love to take donations and get them out to teachers who I know are interested in getting more in their classroom.
So I will then turn to Mr. Young. Can you make sure that gets on our website so any parent that's trying to clean up that college-age student's bedroom on the left and they find
They're going to,
I'm going to tell you, I know which one's coming for me after this.
to be delivered to his office. I'll get them out of his office.
Mrs. McFarland, thank you for your creativity. I will work with staff to ensure we have a receiving center for the.
Get the turkeys that then drive up and hand
yes.
Any other board comments?
Liz, thank you very much for the presentation and humoring me as a parent who's vacuumed up way too many Legos in her parental career. To see this in the classroom level is exciting, and I know that the kids are excited about it. I would like to make sure that teachers who want to participate in this have access to that. So please keep us posted on things that you might need or want. could be helpful to grow this instead of having them just be like our kids' Legos that wind up in bins somewhere else, and getting those out there to as many teachers that want them to do that. So thank you, and thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other board comments? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next report, Mr. Dawson, about student smartphone use.
Thank you, President Knextat, members of the board, Mr. Young. Saw that we had to follow Legos and tough act to follow. So, back in July, we presented a report updating updating student smartphone use in the classroom. Go to the next slide. At that point, we talked about AB 3216, pupils' use of smartphones in the state of California. That would require school districts to have a policy in place to limit or prohibit students' use of smartphones during the school day by July of 2026. There is language in the proposed legislation that would make exceptions when there was a physician's or surgeon's note. Also would there's also language in the law that would allow students to use the cell phones during emergency situations. As we talked about in July also, some districts in our area, including Lincoln Unified, have instituted this policy. Other districts, San Francisco, Santa Barbara, Folsom, Cordova, have instituted a policy that will limit or prohibit the students' use of smartphones during the school day. And Millswood Middle School has had a policy in place for several years. So I want to invite Ms. Erin Lindsay and Mr. Brock Kaiser up here to talk about Millswood and their experience over the last several years with their policy.
Thank you, President Knextat, Mr. Board, Superintendent Neil Young. Thanks for having us. We've had this policy of no disruptive items allowed on campus for years. I don't even know how to say how many years. It just hasn't been allowed, and we've just called them disruptive items, and phones seem to fall right in that category. I'm thinking back to fidget spinners. That's probably what set me over the top. We just haven't allowed them, and it really hasn't been, except that it makes sense to say disruptive items can't be on campus. We do have a well-defined practice or policy in place so that if you bring your phone, okay, let me make an exception. I do say but, right? Because I'm a parent, I get it. Our students, I want to know, I have Life 360, I want to know where my students are. But he cannot have his phone out at school. It cannot be visible. It must be in a box in the bottom of his backpack. And if he needs to call me, well, he can walk into the office, but if he needs to call and get a hold of us, we have a phone zone out in front of the school. We have signs up, we call it the phone zone. So if students need to use their phone at the end of the day before they head home, check in with their parents, they can use it in the phone zone. There is no exception to that. We do not turn a blind eye. We don't say, okay, just this once. If your phone is out, we take the phone, we hold it in the office, and we require parents to come in and pick it up. We are very clear about that policy. I repeat it standing on my head, juggling, upside down, backwards, over and over. It's in our planner. I have a sticker in the planner that I ask parents to sign so we know that they saw it. I put it in the s'more. I put it everywhere. We repeat it over and over and over. About 10% of our students last year violated the policy one time, and about 2% violated it 2 times, earning them a Thursday school. Thursday school is a 2-hour detention on Thursday afternoon. We're about on the same track. We've had 13 incidents this quarter of students having their phone out. Some of those didn't have it out. Some of them simply had it in their front pocket. That's as good as being out. It's too quick to pull out and take a picture of a student in a compromising situation, whatever that might be.
exercises at PE, eating in the lunchroom, all the things that middle school students can dream up. We just don't even allow them to be seen in the pocket. They can be in their backpack, put away, turned off. So some of those were just in their pockets. Most parents love our rules, most applaud, most thank us. A few have said, absolutely not, you will not take my child, and whatnot. But aside from saying it won't happen, we haven't had issues. It's just been clear and well communicated and followed. And I'll let you speak to what you're seeing in the classroom.
Well, absolutely. I think, oh, thank you. Sorry, teacher, big mouth. I don't think it might. Yeah. When it comes to policies, and I think everybody would agree, every policy that we come up with needs to be to the benefit of students. And it's my belief that not having cell phones at the school facilitates that goal. Obviously, it creates a distraction-free learning environment, but also it creates a safe learning environment. As we know from the last couple of days, these rumors that get spread, how are they getting spread? It's going through cell phones. And by not having the ability to pull out their cell phone, walking down the hallways at lunchtime has been a big benefit for us at our school. And needless to say, in the classroom, when I started teaching a long time ago, when dinosaurs were still walking around, and when cell phones first appeared, it was, I'm not kidding you, maybe every 5 minutes, I'm telling students, you know, you've got to turn off your phone. And no, your mom can't call you right now. And it's really hard. You only have 52 minutes to get in your curriculum. And having to tell a student every 5 minutes to put a phone away was a huge detriment to that. So not even having the ability to have their phone out, having that distraction, having that temptation, again, goes back to my original point. It's been to the benefit of not only staff, but to the students as well by helping facilitate their learning.
I have a question. When did you start this? Did you start at the beginning with, you know, cell phones are old, but when did you start?
It's hard for me to put a year or two, but I will say the policy has always been in place to say no disruptive items. Our return from COVID, students had their phone in their hand while they were learning, or they were learning from their phone. So when they returned from COVID, we noticed a huge uptick in phone use. And we noticed a huge uptick in every behavior. And really, as a staff, we said enough is enough, and we did, Mr. Porter was there with us, we did a community night to tell parents, listen, we're going old school, and those were the terms I used, and I said, no more phones, no more fighting, no more, I laid it all out, and that I would say is our starting date to really lay down the high expectation of no exceptions. I think prior to that, we would say, no phones, put them away, and didn't necessarily confiscate them or have the progressive discipline policy. I think that was born out of our return from COVID when we just were just worn out with various discipline issues. So probably 2021.
So now it's simple for you because you have that rule already.
Yes.
And the students understand, even the new students coming in understand that.
Yes.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, it's a consistent policy, and that's the key. Every staff member is promoting the policy, the administrators are promoting the policy, and when we're all on the same page, it makes it a lot easier, and the students know, you know, it just becomes natural for the students. This is the first, the last few years I've been here at Lodi, the first time I haven't had to deal with phone issues. And I think that's because of Miss Lindsay's policy. The district I came from, you know, we had a policy, but it just wasn't consistently enforced. And the fact that it is now being enforced has made my job so much easier in the classroom. And I think it's really helped the students as well.
Okay, is there?
There's more.
There's
plenty more
from these guys. Okay, before we get into questions.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. So in August, we sought community feedback. We used Dot Exchange to push out surveys. It was a very short survey. There were 3 questions and then three multiple choice questions and then 3 questions that asked for a deeper dive. As you can see the data in front of you, we had over 5,000 respondents between students, parents, guardians, and staff. Want to go to the next slide? So the first question was simple. The use of smartphones by students causes distractions during the school day. And you can see overwhelmingly, staff and parents believe that it did create a distraction during the school day. Almost as overwhelmingly the other way, students did not agree. They strongly disagreed or they disagreed. And if you go to the next slide, it lays that out a little bit more. So 87% of staff, 79% of parents strongly agreed, while 66% of the student respondents strongly disagreed or disagreed that it caused a distraction. The next question laid out some policy options. What they felt would be the most reasonable. One option was what Millswood is doing. It's that the phones are put away in your backpack when you enter school and they're out when you leave school. The next option was that they can be used during passing periods and at lunch. And the next option was that they could be used during only lunch. If you go to the next slide, I'm sorry, that's wrong. If you go back, I apologize. And you can see from the students, overwhelmingly, they believe that the most reasonable policy would be to be able to use them during passing period and a lunch. From a parent-guardian perspective, that had the most support. From the staff perspective, it was that they are put away throughout the school day entirely. The next 3 slides, I'm not going to read them, but please look through them. So the Thought Exchange, artificial intelligence, will take all the responses from the different groups, and it'll show you the strong feeling. It'll synthesize feelings on one side, synthesize feelings on the other side, and then come up with common ground. So if you go through the next 3, Michael, I'll just leave that there for everybody to read. Go to the next one, please. And the next one. Okay, and then I want to turn over to Mr. Lambert to talk about some next steps, things that we're looking for.
Thank you. So a key to what we're discussing is, as has been shared, is consistency and enforcement. We do already have Rule 5131, your board policy 5131 that is in place. It was last revised in 2012. It basically outlines what Ms. Lindsay has shared that says the phones should be put away during instructional time and shall not disrupt the environment, the learning environment. There are exceptions for health issues in the need, and it also describes other electronic devices, so it may be smart watches or other type of electronic devices that may be included in that may cause a disruption to the learning environment. Those things are already in place. I think the keys are how we enforce it and making sure that as a new policy comes out from the state, and we see that we're still in alignment, hopefully we're still in alignment with our current policy. CSBA, we're in alignment with their current recommendations. Our policy is still in alignment with what they currently have. And so until the new policy comes out from the state, I think we're really recommending that we just have consistent enforcement of our current policy. And then there's some differences between elementary school, middle school, and high school. If you'll go to the next slide, please. And so some of the recommendations from staff are that elementary schools continue with their current practice, which is that all smartphones put away during school hours. Middle schools come in alignment with what Millswood is doing, which is, again, having them away during school hours, maybe setting aside an area that they can be used, as Ms. Lindsay has shared, at specific times after school. And then for the high schools, based on some of the feedback that was given to us through the surveys, high schools with a little bit more availability and having the phones put away, but can be used during passing periods and during lunch in the high schools. And those are some of the recommendations based on our input from all of the survey groups and from staff and students. But the key is consistency across the board and making sure that we enforce the policies that are already in place. We also, as Mr. Dawson has shared, we understand the need for in emergency situations, that there may be some concern. Having the policy that it's put away does allow for if there are emergency situations. That, you know, and I know that that's a concern, or could be a concern, that has been shared with us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Is there any comments from the public about cell phone use?
Mr. Knaxted, members of the board, Lisa Wilkins with LEA. I worked at Murata. Murata has a very similar policy as Millswood. My only thing is that Lincoln Unified, their teachers have an MOU that indemnifies them when a phone is confiscated, when the phones are, they put phones in a bag, and basically it indemnifies the teacher if something should happen to the phone. Now, when I took phones, I had a cabinet that locked. I would take the phone, I'd watch the kid write on a Post-it note, put their name on it. I would put it up there until campus security came and got it. But if, and that way no one could steal it, no one else could get it, but not all teachers have that. You know, as a science teacher, we have a lot of locked cabinets. So we need to have some protection for teachers if a phone gets confiscated for you know, theft and damage, and we need to have a protocol on what happens when a phone gets confiscated, so that you know, teachers are protected if something, you know, God forbid, should happen. So we need to have, you know, a good chain of command, good policies and procedures in place for that. I am in 100% agreement that they are a distraction. I will let you know that I taught this summer at Tech Trek, which the AAUW, American Association of University Women, supports. And the Stockton chapter, we sent 5 girls, and the Lodi chapter sent 0. And what the Lodi chapter told me was really interesting was that girls did not want to go because they have a policy that the phones are put away, and they deal with that. They put them in a bag in a locked cabinet on campus because we stay in the dorms. And for the whole week, they don't have their phones. The girls from Lodi were like, well, we don't want that. And they were all incoming 8th graders, right? The girls from Stockton, you know, they were hesitant because I was on the, you know, review committee, but they did it. And I will tell you, not one child missed that phone the whole week. At the end of the week, we asked them, hey, what was it like without your phone? And they were like, gosh, we were doing so many things, we were having so much fun. We were talking to other girls our age from throughout Northern California. They did not miss it. It was so enlightening. And that really turned their perspective because, like I said, when we did the feedback at the end of the week and they were getting back their phones and we were talking about it, it was just night and day. So, you know, this is something to think about. I think it's a great policy. I think it makes kids talk. It makes them talk in the classroom. It makes them get to know one another. And I would love to see something like this. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? This would be your turn to talk, and I would be interested in seeing what you guys think, student reps.
To be honest, I think it's really good to have this policy because in most of my classes, And I would say I'm one of those people, but me and my peers and I would always, we can't live without our cell phones, and we would always take it out to check the time, chat up my friends or my family. You know, it keeps like my phone is like always attracting me to go on it. So I think having this policy will really help alleviate these addictions with our smartphones, and it also allows us to engage with our teachers more and be focused with what we're learning.
Thank you.
I also agree. At my school, all of my teachers are really good at enforcing these rules of only using it during passing period and at lunchtime. And I feel like most of the time, it helps a lot of the kids. A lot of my peers would probably really disagree with me, but I personally think it's a really good policy to have because it honestly, for some, it will decrease their anxiety. It will get them to communicate with others, find some things out that you didn't know about your peers, and it will get you away from those screens, and it will get you to communicate again more with your teachers and see what's more to offer with your world and everything out there. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Connected, members of the board, if I could, I did have a conversation with the superintendent in Lincoln Unified as well as a teacher who happens to work at the same gym. Both said the same thing, that communication is up between peers. It also brought up the MOU concept, and that's certainly something we can bring to you in closed session about an interest of yours to work with Leah, because there is a concern if a phone gets taken away and something happens, teacher doesn't want to be liable for that, and I understand that, and so we can discuss that and put something together if that's the board's interest. But that was a really big piece. One other thing I would bring up to you is with the recent events this week, I do think there are parents that are concerned, especially that the phone, if it is locked up in a way where under an emergency situation they can't get to communicating with their child, and let's look at a lockdown situation as an example, and that did come out of Georgia, and that situation, knowing it's in the backpack as opposed to locked up where they have no access whatsoever. This came before this most recent wave of social media posts, but it does address the issue, which is they're away in your own backpack. It doesn't take it away from ever accessing in an situation, but it's a responsibility piece, and so those are pieces that we included in ours that may be a little different than Lincoln's, but the desire for students to communicate and not to be addicted to the noises that would suggest someone's posted or liked or whatever it might be are also mentally good for our students as well. So just wanted to bring those as well along with this.
Any other public comments? Okay, I know some of you guys have comments on the board. No. You did?
I know everybody does. I have a few comments.
Okay.
First of all,
Microphone, please.
I pushed it as far as way I can. This is for Miss Lindsay and her staff. This is a data side, then I have a personal side. So the data side, have your suspensions gone down in terms of regards to bullying and so forth? So I'm looking at cause and effect here. Do you think that what you've implemented had some type of effect?
It absolutely had some type of effect. I think more on learning and less on the bullying. Unfortunately, our students go home as soon as they get home and the bullying kicks in. There's nothing that lands in our desk. I say nothing, I know I'm exaggerating. There are very few incidents that happen that don't involve the phone.
Right.
Even though we have a no phone policy, because when they go home, they have full access.
So let's take the positive note.
Okay.
Because you can't control it.
I can't control that. But is learning increased? 100%.
That's my second question of student achievement. So you've seen a significant increase in your student achievement.
Yeah, and there's so many variables that it would be hard to say the phone has caused certain scores to go up.
Right.
But engagement and communication and instruction in the classroom, absolutely.
And then my last question, and this is not really data, but it goes with that. your teachers are more focused on their lesson plan than getting Johnny not to put his phone away.
Yeah.
So that would be for you.
Absolutely. Years ago, it went from making students weren't fighting or arguing to phones. That was my number 1, 2, and 3 thing I dealt with all day. And now that that's not there, absolutely, it gives me a lot more time to just spend on my curriculum.
Right. Yeah, I sat in on I thought you were being very proactive, and I can't remember what year it was either, but I thought you were being very proactive and taking a big step, because you probably had a lot of arrows shot your way by parents. On a personal note, 'cause when I taught, we had cell phones, it's a pain. It's a huge pain. In looking at staff recommendations, and this is my personal opinion, I don't like what we're doing with the high schools. I'm fine with elementary, fine with middle schools. I do not like what we're doing with the high schools. The reason is because you're putting more onus on the teachers again. Nothing's changed. You haven't changed anything with this policy for high schools. Put away in class, could only be used during passing periods and lunch. The same thing we got going on now. So the teacher has to get the kid to get the phone, put it away. And the other thing I noticed is a lot of kids now are wearing buds in their hair, or their hoodie, or whatever. And then they got their phone in their pocket, and they got music, I can't tell. I've been through school visits, and I was shocked, because they didn't have that type of technology when I was finishing up. So my recommendation, and this is just me, as an educator, you're putting too much onus on the teachers. I like what's going on in the middle schools, I like what's going on in the elementary schools. I think you could do a phone zone in your high schools, and I think that'd be great. As far as passing periods, again, you have that phone zone. Maybe you have a couple of them on campus. They've got 6 or 7 minutes, whatever it is, for them to make a quick phone call or text or whatever in that area. But when they walk into that classroom, and the teacher has to tell them to put that phone away, and then with high school teachers, you're gonna get a lot of inconsistencies. And then you lose the buy-in. We tried it with the tardy policy. We tried it with this. Man, you gotta be across the board. So I don't like the part with the high schools. Now, on a personal note, we had a lockdown during swim practice. There was a kid with a gun, Mr. Gaines, screamed at me. We had practice going on. I forget the women's coach, but we pulled all the kids out of the water. We locked up the gate to the outside, I did, to the Tokay pool. We put all the kids in the bathrooms, girls in the girls' bathroom, boys in the boys' bathroom. I said to the kids, call your parents, tell them you're fine. And we locked up the doors into the gate, into the bathrooms, and then the bathroom door itself. Call them, tell them you're fine. The following day, because the kid did have a weapon, we had a big faculty meeting, and I was admonished. Why? I was admonished because having the kids with their cell phones, calling mommy and daddy and saying they're okay. Mommy and daddy are still getting in the car, coming down and clogging the roads, so emergency services can't get in. Oh, yeah. And didn't think about it at the time. I just told them, tell them you're safe, that you're in the girls' bathroom, I think with Miss Ring, and then you're in the boys' bathroom with Mr. Porter. Everything's fine, we're all locked up, we're all sealed. But the principal at the time, and I brought it up at the faculty meeting, this is what I did. Not because we had no guidance, right? And Mr. Adams was there, and he said, what you do is wrong. Like they used to say when we doors. Then Mr. Adams came and said, it's good for you to lock your doors. So you get this in between that I've had shared personally. So in getting back to what I'm talking about, where this is headed, I don't like what's on the high school thing. I think it needs to be stricter, and I think the teachers need to be less involved with that. And getting back to what you talked about, there's no difference between middle school, elementary. We all want to teach, and we don't want to deal with those damn phones. So let's put the hammer down and be consistent with what we're doing with middle schools. They already know the policy. And they walk into high school, same thing. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you very much for your presentation. Mr. Dawson, thank you much for, and Mr. Lambert, thank you very much for this. But my feeling is I can't support this because it's weak on high schools.
Yeah, Mr. Porter, members of the board, we are starting with the least restrictive at the high school level. But you are the Board of Education. You have policy that exists right now about distractions that can be addressed without updating policy. in the end, you're the Board of Education, and you direct staff, and if that's the direction the board wants to go, we can look at bell to bell,
Yeah.
instead of looking at it classroom.
Well, my follow-up is, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
I'll step out of the way of this. Is that they can have their phones in their backpack, I don't care. I just don't want them out, unless they go to the phone-free zone, which you've done. Outstanding idea, by the way. And we learn, and we're learning from the people that are in the trenches. But I'm all about bringing the hammer. I don't want to milk this along. Bring the hammer. If we have to dial back a little bit, you can. But you can't dial up. It's hard. It's hard to dial up. So when I coached and taught, I always brought the hammer early, and then I could bring it down a little bit. Things are
Always the
smooth.
case, Mr. Porter.
Yeah.
Starts to talk.
You know, Mr. Nava knows.
Yeah, certainly, you give us direction, and if that's the direction of the board, we will move that direction as well.
Yeah, good comment. Ms. Stroh, did you have a
I'm
comment?
kind of echo a lot of
Okay,
what
all right.
Courtney says, so I'll just pass, but thanks. And I've
Okay.
seen your school and I enjoyed when I went there, so it was,
Well, it's-
because I fought phones all the time in high school. I retired about the same time as Courtney.
Mr. Stroh, microphone, please.
I fought phones all the time too, and I taught some of the rougher classes, and I had to deal with parents, and, threatening kids who were finally still are. But so that was always kind of intimidating. It's like, but I think if they're growing up with that rule and they see it, it makes it a lot easier. It makes it easier to dial back and dial. So that's it.
Comment? Okay.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I think this is an ongoing issue being addressed. I do have to agree with Courtney on this for sure, that I think continuing on from what you're doing in middle school, take it up to high school. The kids who are in middle school right now already know how to follow this rule. When we were at the CSBA meeting last year, Sue had shown me one of the classrooms, one of the meetings that they were presenting. There were pouches at the entryway of a classroom. So each child had to deposit their phone in their specific pouch and then sit down. So there was no earbuds, none of that usage happening. That was a brilliant idea, and the pouch self-locks once the phone drops in. So it's not locked and put away. They can run and reach for it if necessary in case of emergency. So that's something to consider. There's a lot of things out there for our school district to look at, but kudos to Mansoor. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Mr. Farley?
I'll start by saying, and Courtney, I think you would echo this, 4 or 5 years ago at CSBA, we sat in on a seminar. We came out and instantly grandmother and said, we need this in our schools. It's too soon, too soon. So to me, this can't happen quick enough. I've been begging and talking about this from CSBA for at least 5 years. One of the things you said, which I loved, was you said they can't get a hold of mom. I don't think it's that they can't get a hold of mom. What it does is it brings our students back to life, making choices without asking 30 people, what do you think, what do you think? It gives a student self-esteem that they can manage their day, they can manage their classes, they're focused. I also like that they're gonna find their voice without their phone in their hand. It's okay to talk if you're not getting an opinion or double checking, and if anybody's tried to get something done and your phone's going off as adults, it drives me nuts. I have 3 phones at work, and I feel like there's just days I want to put them in the drawer. So I can't imagine in a classroom, let alone staff, trying to manage 30-plus students at a high school level. I absolutely am in agreement with you, Courtney. I think if we're going to do this, we need to swing for the moon. I love the language of distraction. I love that language because it's wide and broad, and it'll cover us for a couple of years, maybe more, depending on what technology is out there. I also like the idea of the phone zone if you have to. We have school nurses, maybe not enough, that's a whole other report. But if somebody needs something medically or they have something, there was a reason we had offices with staff to answer questions, more communication, more talking. I'm absolutely in favor of this. I think the biggest concerns I have is staff buy-in. You put 10 staff members in a room, and I'm talking from custodian to teacher to lunch lady, everybody's gonna have 10 different opinions. And I think if we're gonna run a policy, we better run it all the way across, because it's not fair and it's not equitable if one teacher does it and I hate to pick on a teacher or a custodian but we have to have buy-in by everybody. And so if we don't have buy-in by the whole staff, then we're only as strong as our weakest link. So I think it's the classroom time really concerns me of what additional burdens, and I think we kind of just assume it's a burden a staff member is going to bear throughout the year, throughout the day. And I think it's time to get a little bit of control back. And as a parent with kids that had cell phones, I can remember calling Mr. Raby when my daughter called and said, "What's for dinner?" She texted me from her 6th class, "What's for dinner?" And I said, "Put your phone away and study." And she said, yeah, but I'm asking. And I called Mr. Raby and said, "If you don't take that phone, I'm coming down there." So he took her phone. And I think maybe I parented different, but I think those days are gone where we tell our parents, because the parents are holding their phones. Everywhere you go, someone's got a phone. And so I think we need to put some phones down just as a country and as a community, put our phones down and start talking to each other. So I think this is a great message that we need to send, and we need to send it strong. So those are I'm for this, but I agree with Courtney and my other board members on the high school. I love, 2 years ago I would have said pouches, pouches, pouches. You tap the thing on your way out. I love the concept. Now I'm kind of the belief that I like it in the backpack. It's a lot of watching. I'm seeing increased budgets. I'm seeing increased campus security. I'm seeing it's going to increase our budget, but maybe it's well worth it. Thank you.
Any other board comments?
Yes, just have a question for Mark and Peter. High school teachers, have you observed what they're doing now with their cell phones?
I haven't observed. I know when I was at the site 2.5 years ago, or 2 years ago now, when I would go through, teachers had policies. Some they weren't applied across the board. There was the board policy that exists. There was a school policy that were to be put away during the school day or during class time, but they weren't. Wasn't always followed. So you would go into some classes and phones would be put away and students would be engaged. Go into some classes and they wouldn't be.
Peter?
I agree with what Mark just shared, and that we had a meeting with our high school principals this morning today. We reviewed some of these items, and they're seeing a little bit of inconsistencies as well within their classrooms, and so that was some of the feedback that they shared, which is why the high school is a little bit different. It's based on some of the feedback that was shared with us by the principals through their staff.
Yeah, I think in the high school level it's difficult because every teacher is different. You know, we have a rule. For example, I think somebody mentioned policy. There's 5 teachers enforcing, 5 teachers that aren't. Hats, 3 teachers enforcing your hats off. The other one's, I better wear my hat, see? So those are policies. If we do come with the phone restrictions, it has to be hard-nosed. Otherwise, there's be too many things that are going differently, and it has to be enforced by the leader of the school, and the teachers have to abide by that rule in order for us to be successful to do that. Otherwise, we're just not matching things, okay? That's my belief. And being a former high school teacher, I know that, hey, let's do it and not change it and be strong about it. Thank you.
I thank you for your presentation, and being a middle school teacher, I know how important this is and the amount of time spent. So when I see the survey that staff wants this, I was one of those staff members, because you're just right in the crux of this great lesson and somebody's got to get phone out or whatever. And I appreciate what Raphael and Caitlin said about being honest, and it's not a survey. I'm looking at our investment and understanding that, and I appreciate your honesty with that, because one of the things that I saw that we've kind of addressed is the videoing. And it's the pictures and the unwarranted and people aren't giving permission for these, and they're winding up on the internet forever. And they're never wonderful, like, good job, you're awesome. It's always trauma. And so I am very concerned, about that. And seeing that at the high school level during passing periods and lunchtimes, when do conflicts happen? When do these things happen? So I agree probably with also the rest of the board that I don't think that there is a place to give kids opportunities to show other kids in non-positive lights. That's just kind of my feeling on it. Even though I know we were guilty of pulling out and videotaping some really cool things in science before all of this kind of came down. But I do believe that we need to interact more, we need to share more, and we need to look at the positive more.
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation, the time that you took to put into that, and keep it up, Aaron. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I'll bring it home and say right off the bat that I'm pretty much in agreement with my board colleagues. One of the things I was, as a teacher, ex-teacher, I would not like to be responsible for confiscating telephones and or anything else really, but in particular a telephone, which can run into some big bucks nowadays. So that's one thing I think we need to look at. The other question I have is the new direction that the district supports is the creation of board policy AB 3216 when that becomes law. What is that law?
I don't have the specific text of what the legislature has approved and what the governor is, the final signature from the governor. We're still waiting for that, correct?
Yeah.
Essentially what it means?
It's the, I have the name of it, but it lost me. So some of the text says people shall be prohibited from possessing or using a smartphone under any of the following circumstances. And it talks about emergency, or should not be, talks about emergencies, it talks about under direction of a doctor or a surgeon. It was passed through the legislature in August, and it's now waiting for the governor to sign it. He's come out publicly, supported it, so the belief is that he will sign it into law. Once AB 3216, when and if it goes into law, then it will require districts to have a policy that limits or prohibits the use of cell phones during the day by July 1st of 2026. And Mr. Young has our current policy as it's written.
Yeah.
That's fine, yeah, because, so basically it says we have to have a policy.
Once that goes into effect.
Right, okay, so we're gonna be way ahead of those guys then.
Well, currently we have policy 5131 that addresses cellular, digital telephones, pagers, and other mobile communications devices.
What's a pager?
Yes, that's what we have in place now. I do believe we need to, based on what I'm hearing from the board, I believe we need to return with an update to that policy to be more consistent with what I'm hearing from the board about the consistency with high schools and middle schools with phones off during the school day from bell to bell. And because this just refers to such devices shall be turned off in class, well, it probably shall be put away during school time instead of just in class, because that's where we'll have some of those problems. So we can bring an update back to you, board, but it sounds like we have direction from the board how we want to work with our school sites, put this in place so that we have consistency starting in 25, 26. But I'm sorry, Mr. Connexity, if there's anything else you needed.
No, I was just gonna, the elementary school, under staff recommendations, the elementary and middle schools I think probably would be okay, but again, the high schools, that's a difficult one, and anxious to see exactly what you come up with on that one.
I think what I heard from the board is we want the same for our high school students, the freedom from the distractions, the freedoms from the issues that are addressed there during the school day, not just in classroom. What we brought was high school's classroom. What your interest is middle and high school will look very similar during the school day, that those cell phones will be away so that they are not a distraction. And I think that's clear direction from what I heard from you, and we will begin working on that process.
Mr. Connect,
Yes, sir.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Ms. Lindsay, when you introduced this policy at your school, you had to have defiant parents. Did you get support from the ESC? I'm putting you on the spot.
I didn't need it, if I'm honest. I didn't need it. We have had parents, but I have been able to articulate well and communicate well
Excellent.
with them and
I just want to make sure you're getting the support you need.
if I've needed it, I have received it, but I don't recall needing the.
I was putting you on the spot, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I don't mind, I kinda like it.
Just making sure you get the support you need.
All right, are we done here? Okay, let's move on to proposed revisions to board policies and rules, and there's a bunch of them starting with 4,000 and going down to 4158. Ms. Church. Give us the highlights.
All right, good evening, President Axted, members of the board, Mr. Young. In line with CSBA recommendation, the board policies before you reflect new language, including the recommendation to eliminate a policy that it is not recommended exist. I was able to connect with Ms. Alexander after reviewing them, and there are a few minor typos. There was one section where there were lines through it, and section in which number was it? 40. I can't see. Excuse me. Oh.
Are you looking for the phrasing one?
It was the phrasing one in 4119.11. There was some lineage that needs to be eliminated. It doesn't read correctly that she caught. In addition to, there was language where these were board policies that actually had been overseen and updated by my predecessor, our substitute, Ms. Vedeka. We thank her very much for her work. She used a language that was straight from Gamut that indicated the employee or the individual, and we discussed that it would be best to stay in line with previous practice and change the pronoun to their so that there's consistency. The other issue was the term decision maker shows up in our Title IX policy. It's a brand new policy. Decision maker is used repeatedly as one word. It is straight from the legal phrasing of CSBA. However, Ms. Alexander feels it would be better if it was hyphenated. I was able to find it both ways in other board policies, so I agreed to go back and make that edit to hyphenate.
Being consistent. It's consistent. Consistency.
Either one, it means decision maker, the maker of the decision. So whether it be hyphenated or not.
Comments?
Yes, I have one.
Okay.
Still. If you want to pull up Rule 4119.12, and if you look at page 5 and page 9, there's the yellow boxes, the ominous yellow boxes that don't have a number in them. I have a hard time looking at something that is not defined. And I think we open ourselves up when we're looking at a gray area. We always know things are misinterpreted. And if you go down to number 9, on number 9, neither of those boxes have also been filled in. And what Ms. Church and I talked about was the fact that it is a board discussion. I couldn't remember what you said exactly.
Sure. There is no definitive legal statute for a number of days to communicate whether or not a complainant if it will move forward, as well as the duration of the investigation and the conclusion of the investigation. investigation. It should end in 60 days. That would be the end. However, there are mitigating factors, and the law states that it should be reasonably prompt time frame. When investigating and looking at other board policies in surrounding districts that have already adopted these, a lot of them, I would say the vast majority that I found, simply use that phrasing. They didn't put a number in those boxes.
And I went through Gamut. I did get signed in and found and kind of went back and forth. And again, in today's society, having some sort of a definite, leaving it open-ended, I think opens us. And we had talked about talking to legal, maybe to get something. Were you able to do?
She confirmed that there are not definitive times, with the exception of the law does state that it needs to be a reasonably prompt time frame. That is what we have right now, and that the typical time frame will end in 60 days. However, there are mitigating factors, complexity of the allegations, whether or not their school is in session for that entire time, accessibility of witnesses, the number of witnesses. So there are a lot of factors that would go into an investigation.
I just personally am uncomfortable with leaving a box blank, especially when we are talking about this topic, and I like things very black and white and concrete.
Let's put 3 days.
I'm
24 hours.
No, wait a minute. No.
Can I ask you this, Sherry? So if we have a reasonably prompt time already written in Gamut or in CSBA policy, why don't we just add that rather than leave it like this?
This is the language from Gamut, what you see.
So then let's just change it to where it complies with how we would like for it. If all of the board members are okay with it, then we change it to a reasonably prompt timeline rather than a date.
Well, a date, I'm sorry, start, Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you put a date, you put a timeline, you put a framework where you might lose out on information. And then not have a thorough investigation. By doing a reasonably amount of time, you left yourself open for full disclosure.
Yeah.
By putting a timeline, you might hinder the investigation.
Yeah, I agree.
And rush it, not do it correctly. It's legalese, reasonably amount of time. How do you define that? But that's why it is the way it is. I like what you've done. I mean, the yellow box can go away. We can put something else in. I agree with Dr. Ball that if we do it reasonably amount of time, that would fit. And I don't know if Ms. Alexander would agree with that.
I am fine with that.
I just don't want to put us under constraints and then
Yeah,
individual.
no, I'm fine with that. I just, seeing that like that, I just feel looks not complete.
Thank you for looking at it.
It does, it
I think
also,
we would all disagree on a reasonable amount of time, but I'm okay with that. I can be flexible.
all of the boxes also are followed with unless time needs to be extended. That is also in there. Should you choose to.
Wait a minute. I'm going to move back because we keep skipping over public comment, so we'll move into public comment real quick and then we'll come back to Mrs. McFarland.
Thank you. I actually have, there's actually 3 that I want to discuss. The first one is Rule 4143.1, and it says, also says below it 4243.1. And this is on personnel negotiations. The way I read this is once we sunshine, it says the meeting and negotiating between district and employee organization representatives shall not take place on any proposal until a reasonable amount of time has elapsed after the submission of the proposal to enable the public to become informed and express itself regarding the proposal at a public meeting. Okay, I get that. We presented it last week. It got approved this week. But then below that, 2 paragraphs below it, it says new subjects of meeting and negotiating arising after the presentation of initial proposals shall be made public within 24 hours. If a vote is taken on any such subject by the board, each member's vote shall also be made public within 24 hours. Well, here's the problem that I have with that. Does that mean that anytime we pass a proposal across the table, that becomes public? Because sometimes a proposal is passed and the bargaining team needs to take it back to the executive board for input. And that's not going to happen in 24 hours. Everybody on my bargaining team is a volunteer. Most of my people on my executive board, everybody else on the executive board except me is a volunteer. There's no way for us to get together in 24 hours to discuss this and then have it made public. So that's really, that really worries me, and I think it's going to hinder the bargaining process if that is something that has to be done.
And real quick, Ms. Wilkins, that is existing language that has been in there since its inception. That is not new language.
Well, that is not something that we have done in the past. And I'm afraid to see that it's going to start being enforced before the bargaining parties. And it's not just me. I wish CSEA was here. I wish LPPA was here. I think every other bargaining group would have a problem with that. And so I want some clarification on that. The other two are the two on employee security. On policy 4158. So it's in the second paragraph, it says any employee against whom violence or any threat of violence has been directed in the workplace shall notify the superintendent or designee immediately. As appropriate, the superintendent or designee shall initiate legal and security measures to protect the employee and others in the workplace. And that includes getting a restraining order on behalf of the employee. Okay, that's great. But it goes to, when you go to that, into the policy, when you go to the rule, the second paragraph says, an employee shall promptly report to the principal or any other immediate supervisor any attack, assault, or physical threat made against the employee by a student or any other individual in relation to the performance of the employee's duties, and any action this employee took in response. Reports of an attack, assault, or threat shall be forwarded immediately to the superintendent or designee. And then the paragraph below that says, in addition, the employee and principal or other immediate supervisor shall promptly report to local law enforcement authorities an attack, assault, or physical threat made against the employee by a student.
Okay, Ms. Wilk, can you wrap it up, please?
I'm trying to.
Faster?
So when you're interrupting me, doesn't help.
Finish up, please.
I'm talking.
Finish up, please.
I'm talking. So here's the thing. Yes, we get threatened, we get assaulted by students. It doesn't say anything here about parents, and I'm hearing that more and more and more from my teachers. That a parent will come and verbally and physically assault a teacher for whatever reason. They let the kid, they felt the kid got out too late. Whatever. So we're in here just to talk about assaults to teachers, or staff for that matter, any other staff, from a parent.
Okay, do we have any student comments? No? Okay, I'm sorry, we're back to board comments. Ms. Alexander, did you, or? No.
I just had, when we were talking about the yellow boxes, it says that on the right of it, if you continue on in the sentence, it says blank days. I would like the word days removed. Oh, sorry. When we're talking about the yellow boxes, if we're going to put a reasonable time frame, I would like days removed because it's implying that it's going to be like less than,
Maybe like 2 days.
Yeah, could be, yeah. That's just.
Yeah, my understanding is that the yellow box, in addition to days, would be eliminated and replaced with reasonably prompt time frame.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah. So we'll bring that back as an action item with those changes.
Thank you.
Okay,
I think also getting back to the employee security, I mean, paragraph 2 there says any person who threatens the safeties of others. So I think we've covered parents under that category, right? Any person, we covered parent. So it's in there, so.
Okay, makes sense. All right, we are now at, are there any board advisory reports? Probably not this, oh, there is?
Dr. Paul.
Go, all
I
right.
was gonna let you take that.
I was gonna let you have that.
We did meet with the City of Stockton Juventude Committee, it was yesterday, here at the boardroom. Interesting conversation with the City of Stockton, it just seems like everything moves extra slow. We talked about our, the library in front of McNair High, which looks like it's part of McNair High, which is not part of McNair High, but it had arson and it had problems that came up. And apparently, as we were told yesterday, that's another year out before it's completed. So, yeah, that's kind of sad, but we thought 52 weeks was a long time to finish an already ongoing project. So that was one of them, and could you take up the next?
Sure. We talked a lot about traffic safety at school sites, and so we focused on John Muir and Manlio Silva. We did talk about Claremont and, I can't remember, Park Lane. Those seem to be, the City of Stockton felt like those had been resolved mostly. The big concern was John Muir and Manlio Silva. And kind of what the consensus was is they're going to do their study to see what the city can do regarding the actual streets. And then we basically committed to, we will take a look at what we're doing for the flow of traffic and student pickup. And so the concern is that, from what the City of Stockton people were hearing, is that our parents are doing kind of whatever they want, and the students are running, and someone's going to get hurt. They implied that we need to manage better, and we didn't disagree or agree. We basically said we would look into it and make sure that we were executing well. We do know that Elkhorn had similar problems and other schools did, and they figured out how to do it. So I think we have some great models out in our district of how to do it better. And maybe it's just a matter of just a little site education. I don't know, I haven't been on John Muir or Manlio Silva, so I'm hoping that those principals can maybe work with you, Mr. Young, or to figure out, is it a student district problem, or is it a flow of traffic problem?
Or a parent playing nicely in the sandbox issue. So yes, we understand, and Mr. Dawson and Mrs. Peterson can work with the sites, and we can also bring in additional supports to ensure that that happens.
And they also made some comments that we do not consistently have crossing guards. And so I thought that was an interesting statement. That would be something I would want clarified from the school side. I can't imagine that we don't have consistent crossing guards. That was.
On a day there's an absence, there may be a situation, certainly, but we're not trying to be inconsistent with our crossing guards.
Correct. The word inconsistent means that it's more not than.
Right.
Yeah.
It's what's the message.
And our next meeting is January, so we'd love to be able to get them some information.
Okay.
And thank you, Edith.
Thank you, Edith, for.
Okay, any other advisory?
Oh, not advisory.
Okay, so we're bringing it home, board comments. I do have one comment I wanted to ask about. As we've all seen on television throughout the country, there's all kinds of school emergencies, some being deadly. And one of the things that happened in the school back east is that all staff had these emergency or alert buttons on their, I would say, their lanyard. But that might be something that we may want to look into for our district.
We are already looking at that, and we will be bringing something back to the board for consideration.
Right on. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Alexander.
I just wanted to, with the end of the first quarter already, it seems like it has gone by, wish everybody a wonderful and relaxing 2-week break. Take care of yourselves, have some fun.
Okay.
Celebrate Spanish Heritage Month.
Oh, yeah?
Okay.
Okay.
And one thing, should be zero tolerance on somebody hitting or attacking a staff member.
Absolutely.
Zero tolerance.
Absolutely.
Okay? I don't, hard for me to believe that some kid would attack somebody, or some student would attack a teacher or whatever. I have never had that experience before, and when I've talked before, I didn't see any of the teachers, the students are well behaved, and they know their boundaries.
And certainly, that is the goal. I would also remind you, we do have at nonverbal students, we have SDC classrooms, we have emotionally disturbed students, we have a number of issues, or we have students who have never been in school before, as we're experiencing, and the idea of being able to collaboratively work in a classroom. So there are challenges, that would be our desire, but certainly I can't say that we don't have some challenging scenarios where kids have dealt with some significant trauma.
Right. I agree with you, especially with kids.
Here,
Any other board comment?
I have a comment. As we close out towards first quarter, I know this is a pet peeve of Mr. Nava's.
Yes.
As we're in our comprehensive high schools, freshmen normally struggle with the transition. I hope that our counselor getting those students that have 2, hopefully 1 F in for conversation, maybe looking at ways we can mitigate and help them find success in high school, because as you know, you fall 2 or 3 classes behind, and then you're behind and it snowballs. And Mr. Nava has always pushed forward, let's get those kids into the counseling, let's get a plan forward, first quarter's coming up, let's take a look at it. And let's have our counselors pull those kids in that are having 1 or 2 Fs, especially the freshmen, and help them with transition. And then of course I love the Legos. It was a step towards looking at student achievement, and hopefully we take a bigger step at our next board meeting. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Couple.
Okay.
I had a couple of visits that I really enjoyed. I went back to Needham West because I liked it so much the first time. And this time I'm getting to know the staff a little bit. The students were letting out and I was hanging out as they were getting on the buses. It's a good experience, and it's kind of a school that slips under the radar, and it really does. And also went to food services, but I didn't get to see the magic because I went after cooking hours. But next time I'm going on cinnamon bun day or cinnamon rolls. I have to get there. Yeah, I like it. So that was quite enjoyable too. They just bring you in as part of the family, so it was kind of neat. And kind of came up with the phones, but I don't know, people don't really have the time. And it's actually addressed in this book. And I know there's 4 or 5 books on the subject, but there's one out that's pretty good called Stolen Focus. And it's not only addresses the phone issue in schools, but also phone issues with adults, and also environmental issues that affect the people's focus time is just drastically fallen off in years. It's an ever steepening descent. And there should be a 0 tolerance for attacking a teacher. I agree with that. And it came up today in the dentist's office because one of the other patients there earlier in the day, I had broken up a fight 41 years ago, and the kid hit me, and now he's a 58-year-old adult, and he remembered it and brought it up to the dentist for some reason. At Dr. Gubb's office, yeah. And she came in, and actually the guy did time, but it was for other things involved in that. But I completely forgot about it. They made me go to court, and I don't know if it was on purpose. That didn't matter. So anyway, it's not a new problem, but it's at least 41 years old. Because we figured out its age value. So anyway, and I'm going to thank all the teachers and the staff. I know we got one more board meeting before the break. Or no?
Right after.
During the break.
Yep, first Tuesday of the 2-week break.
Right. Okay.
Any other
So
comments?
anyway, thanks.
No, I just thank everybody's efforts. This was a nice congenial meeting. I appreciate it.
Okay, we done?
Yes.
Need a motion?
Motion.
To what?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Thank you.
Good job, Peter. Good job.